Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hello there, welcome to today's episode, which I'm calling Why Seeking Clarity Can Be a Problem. Now, before I get into all that, I hope wherever you are in the world, you're good. I'm going to use this opportunity to give myself a little plug on something. I have a program kicking off in less than 2 weeks' time, the 23rd of Feb, 2022. And it's called MindShift, and it's an 8-week virtual program. And I just thought I'd just throw it out because it is always, I suppose, one of those programs that I run. It's very enjoyable from my point of view, but also it's partly so enjoyable because of the impact that it makes. So if anything that I've been saying over these podcasts, if you're listening and you haven't done MindShift, I know there's a lot of people who have done MindShift who listen in. Hello there. Keep shifting. They'll know what that means. But if you're keen on kind of development of yourself in terms of evolving a better version of you, please do consider this program. It does really make an impact. You can do it from anywhere in the world. It's very manageable in terms of time. And the whole focus is building habits over 8 weeks that will stay with you for life and help you to win at the game of life more consistently. And even if it's not for you, perhaps I would appreciate perhaps even sharing the link in the show notes or even this episode with somebody you know that maybe is keen on it. You don't need to be in a difficult situation, although it'll help people in that kind of way. But also if you're somebody who's just ambitious for yourself, ambitious for your life, and doing well at any level. It doesn't have to be CEO, it doesn't have to be business owner, it could be middle management, junior management, or junior, or whatever it is. The beauty of this program is there's so many different types of people that come in, and it just works regardless of what your mind might think about it. Anyway, all the details are in the show notes, and that's enough of that, Shane. So about clarity. Clarity is definitely beyond a buzzword. You know, it's you hear it so much now. I mean, I even use it myself. But it's kind of something that I think we need to dig into a little bit more. And it kind of occurred to me recently in a conversation I was having with a client where I realized, oh yeah, I haven't really talked about, I suppose, how I see clarity. Now, I suppose a couple of things. From my perspective, we're definitely conditioned in the Western world in particular to having clarity. And it pops up in all sorts of different ways. So I have to have clarity on my vision. I've got to have clarity on my direction. I've got to have clarity on my life's purpose. I've got to have clarity on clarity. But what if clarity is getting in the way? And I think it is for a lot of people. So, that might sound surprising to some people who are listening to this who know me well, because they say, well, hang on, he helped me get clarity. But I think how I do that with people, I haven't really articulated in terms of how I'm looking at clarity. And I suppose to kick us off, a key point I want to get across here is that from what I can see, desperately seeking clarity is very often unconsciously blocking clarity from coming to you. Now, my wife, the lovely Judy, or if you're on my weekly email, you know I refer to her as TLJ for short, at one point was even saying to me that I should brand myself as a clarity consultant. This is going back a couple of years ago. And I was looking at that perhaps. And again, I do talk about clarity. And then also I've got a client who says that I'm his tungsten, as in I shine a bright light whenever I'm having a conversation so he can see and get that clarity, right? So, but what's my point here? Okay, well, I'll tell you a personal story. I was meeting with a client a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, and we got onto vision, and I was chatting about them. And then he turned around to me and said, well, what's your vision? Now, at that time, I'll be honest, I was kind of experimenting with being okay with no vision. And I was quite happy that it seemed to be kind of working in a way, except for when this conversation popped up. And I said to him, well, actually, I don't know what my vision is, which I could see confused him. Now, I've had times in my life where I've been very clear on my direction, very clear on what I'm doing or where I'm going, very outcome focused. And again, it's something I will talk about because outcome focus is very useful. But there is, and maybe we'll talk about this in the next podcast, like there is an inherent blind spot within a vision. So vision isn't everything, can actually hold you back. Anyway, so I said to the client, look, I don't know. And I was okay with that. But when they asked me and we started talking about it, internally, my inner voice was embarrassed because I let my ego get in on me. And after the conversation, I was kind of, without realizing it was only in reflection, realized afterwards, I was beating myself up. I let my ego get on at me. And it was a big learning point for me because I realized, hang on a second here, why am I beating myself up? There was a reason that I was okay with not having a vision, and I need to communicate that. And I'm going to read out something here. I'm not too sure if I find exactly where I got this from. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's from a book. I'm not sure what book it is, but it's a story about a guy called John Kavanagh who went to Calcutta and he met Mother Teresa, the Mother Teresa. So let me just read this to you and I'll talk about it after. So when John Kavanagh, the noted and famous ethicist, went to Calcutta, he was seeking Mother Teresa and more. He went for 3 months to work at the House of the Dying to find out how best he could spend the rest of his life. When he met Mother Teresa, he asked her to pray for him. What do you want me to pray for? She replied. He then uttered the request he had carried thousands of miles. Clarity. Pray that I have clarity. No, Mother Teresa answered, I will not do that. When he asked her why, she said, clarity is the last thing you are clinging to and must let go of. When Kavanagh said that she always seemed to have clarity, the very kind of clarity he was looking for, Mother Teresa laughed and said, I've never had clarity. What I've always had is trust. I will pray that you trust God. Now, before we get into you reacting to the word God, I don't care about the word God in that story. What I care about is trust. And I have a different take on that from my perspective. So this isn't about religion. It's not about faith. And also when I hear that story, I don't think about a Catholic God. I was raised Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic. But what I hear is stop looking for clarity and trust that when you relax yourself inside, when you relax your mind, that clarity naturally emerges. Now that implies then that you already have it, that it's innate. And that is a fundamental shift in our paradigms for, I think, even for a modern psychology looks at things like this. And that's worth considering, is that if you stop looking for clarity and putting yourself under pressure to I have to get the clarity, and just relax. It's almost like that shower moment, the eureka moment. You know, when you're in the shower and you've been stewing about a problem or something's bothering you, and you just kind of all of a sudden your mind starts to drift off and relax without realizing it. And boom, in pops the aha moment, the clarity, the idea, the solution, the way forward. That is the same thing from my point of view. Now, what happens in that moment is your mind relaxes. So if it takes belief in a God for your mind to relax, maybe like for John Kavanagh or Mother Teresa, then fine. I don't think that's it doesn't require you to believe in God. What it requires, I think, from my point of view, something deeper. It's to trust that actually clarity is just sitting inside, waiting to come out. And there's so much around this topic, even as I'm talking about it now, that I suppose there's plenty of kind of other podcasts I can come back to, other episodes I can come back to. But definitely from my point of view, the less I seek clarity, right, the less I may put myself under pressure to get clarity, the more I get it, which is kind of weird, but that's my experience. And I think on a funny level, I think if you, as a guy, if you're kind of going out desperately looking to date a girl or desperately looking to have a relationship, I think we all know what happens. That generally is like you reek of desperation, and it's almost like this repellent. And then it's when you're not looking for a relationship, that's kind of when it happens. Judy, if you're listening, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm very happy in my relationship, so don't worry about that. I do value my life. That's why I'm stating that out loud. So I think if it's a higher intelligence, if it's a God grant that allows you to trust that, okay, I don't have clarity right now. I'm going to trust in something deeper. It doesn't have to be God. It could be anything. It could just be even a belief in yourself or a deeper part of your own wisdom and intelligence, which is how I look at it. And what if clarity is innate? I remember talking to a CEO a few years ago who was obsessed about getting clarity of purpose. And it wasn't until I gave them permission to say, listen, would you forget about it? Right? Just to stop beating yourself up over not having a purpose. They were obsessed with, I have to have a clear why. Simon Sinek's inspired why. I said, yeah, but forget about it. The best people I know are the ones who don't care about that. And then their own clear, authentic sense of purpose, the clarity of purpose, will just come in. But you have to kind of be willing to not be seeking it and just understand that actually it's almost clarity of being in the moment, clarity of not being caught up with the thinking in your mind, to be thinking about your own thinking. That's the clarity you probably should be concerned about. And I often think inner clarity is a little bit like the weather, especially in Ireland anyway, it's always changing. Like yesterday, I'm recording this on Saturday morning. Yesterday was a beautiful, clear, blue sky day. Today, it's the absolute opposite. It's misty, it's rainy, there's not a sight of any sun or blue sky. And if you're in a boat, it kind of occurred to me that, like, when fog comes in, what do? You've lost your clarity. Do you get annoyed at the fog? Do you rail against the fog? Maybe, but that's not going to help. What do you do? Well, maybe you slow down a little bit. Maybe you wait for the fog to lift, but you do know at some point the fog will lift. And I do think clarity is very much like that. So why get wound up about it? And believe it or not, so many people they wind themselves up with this lack of clarity of direction, lack of clarity of purpose, lack of clarity, what's the next thing? How do I do it? And there's a lack of trust in understanding themselves. So I think there's a clear distinction here as I'm talking this out. One is, I suppose, are you direction focused or are you opportunity focused? That is a very significant question. I used to be very direction focused. Most of people I talk to are very direction focused, goal focused, outcome focused. And I'm a fan of having outcomes, but I'm much more focused now on opportunities, which requires me to be very clear in the moment. So I hope some of this struck a chord. I'm talking maybe at a more philosophical or deeper level perhaps today around clarity. A couple of questions, or maybe one question, like, where in your life are you seeking clarity? Where perhaps are you feeling pressure to have clarity on yourself? Why not try and experiment for the next week, the next month, and tell yourself that, look, clarity is there. It's just waiting to come out. Just let it emerge. Your job is just to work on keeping your mind clear in the moment today and for the next couple of days and the next few days and the next hour. And the weird thing about all of this is that from my perspective, what I see is that to get more clarity, ironically, you need to stop looking for it. Thanks for being with me. Oh, by the way, sorry, before you go, here's a quick little favor. Would you mind liking or sharing, or you doing whatever, hitting the 4 stars on this podcast thingy? But I'd love if you're enjoying the content, please do share it with somebody you know. I probably don't ask about that enough, but if you could share it to 1 or 2 or even 3 people, I'd be very grateful. All right, bye-bye.